Welcome to the Mortgage Update with Mike and Joe. Joe, we got a special guest here with us today. Would you like to introduce her?
This is our October episode.
Yep.
Spooky season. We're in Halloween season here.
Right.
Nothing spookier than cybersecurity.
Yes.
So October, for those that don't know, is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We have our head of risk, Megan Antonitto, with us. So we're going to, at some point in the podcast, talk about some different cybersecurity threats that exist out there. Maybe not clicking on that email that you get from your uncle in Nigeria who's ready to pass on his life fortune.
Yes.
Those kinds of things. So things to be on the lookout, some tips. We got an exciting episode being that it is the Halloween episode.
Right.
Nothing was spookier than that Bills game last week.
I know.
But before we jump into Bills, let's just talk about some Halloween trivia, I guess.
Sure.
Well, maybe not trivia, but just best practices.
Sure. Well, first of all, Meg, I want to say we're excited that you're here with us. As I said, you're a rose between two thorns. So thank you very much for being here today. One of the things, obviously this is the Halloween season, and we do a lot of fun things around here at GRB. If I think about some of the past seasons, obviously typically people will dress up, they bring their kids in, we have a lot of fun here at GRB. And I think it's definitely a work hard, played hard environment. But I can think, obviously from my perspective, I know that's asked here, what's the holy grail of costumes that I know that I've worn, in my lifetime. I have to just stick with Batman. It really is, my favorite. I like to pull it out from time to time. And actually, one time I went to a party at my wife's school, dressed up as Batman. I got so much, good feedback that I kept it on for the entire drive back and got to stare down folks on the thruway. It was kind of fun.
Was there maybe a?
I'm surprised you're not dressed up today.
No, I know maybe at some point. Yeah.
Mike, do I recall a story of you potentially being pulled over in costume once?
I did. I was pulled over dressed up as Santa Claus, coming home from a holiday event where one of my friends reached out to one of his friends who is a policeman and did a spoof on me and pulled me over, and I was still dressed in my Santa gear. So needless to say, they let me go, I had some work to do that night. Had some gifts to deliver.
So do you have your eyes on any new costumes?
As I look ahead, I guess this year probably something along the lines of I do want to do something that is scary without being too scary. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe like
have
a
you
scarecrow.
considered? You may not have seen the new Beetlejuice movie, but Bob with the shrunken head. That seems to be
that could be a good look, possibly. Do you like that idea, Megan? Okay. What about you, Megan? Any?
I'm more of a traditionalist when it comes to Halloween.
Okay.
So I typically dress up as a witch.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good witch or bad witch?
Gotta go bad witch.
You gotta go bad witch? Okay.
So Megan, I know you have young kids. What's the theme right now this year?
So my daughter is similar to me. She likes like the witch or sorceress. So she's going to be a sorceress this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's got to be able to cast her spells. Right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Got the wand and everything ready
Yeah.
to
What
go.
about your kids, Joe?
I don't even know we've had the conversation yet about Halloween costumes. Probably about time, right?
Yeah.
I think one wants to be Michael Myers, and
Scary.
the other two.
Wow.
We haven't figured it out yet. We got to take our annual trip to Spirit Halloween.
Yeah.
I have a basement full of kids' costumes. Just
One of them might maybe want to borrow that hat you've got on.
they might. I mean,
Okay.
this is this is going to be my costume this year.
Okay.
I am going to wear the chicken wing shirt. though.
Okay. Listen, let's just, before we jump into the market, obviously, the Bills got just annihilated,
Tough
last week.
Yep.
It was really over within the first 10 seconds of the game. But, maybe they learned from that.
Got through the first quarter of the season 3-1. That's what's important.
Exactly. This is a big week. Obviously they're going up against Diggs, so that'll be interesting to see how that all
Something tells me
unfolds.
McDermott will have a plan to shut him down.
I really do as well. So what's your prediction?
I'm going to
for the
go 31-28 Bills. It's going to be a close one. It's going to be a tight one.
A tight one. Megan?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be a tight game.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's be 10 more than one line. I think it's going to be probably 21-14 Bills.
Okay.
So
All right.
that's my move. So last thing, obviously last night, big night for GRB. Last night was the United Way's Battle of the Bands
Our
event.
very own Refer with Caution.
Yeah, it was great.
The GRB house band.
Awesome turnout. Obviously, our friends over at ESL were there, as well as Excelis. Raised a lot of money and
Yeah, they
awareness,
raised over $11,000.
which is
United
awesome.
Way.
That's great.
You know,
That's-
and hats off to United Way. Actually, speaking of hats off
Mhm.
to this, they did a great job. Right,
Mhm.
last night it was very well put together, very well run. All the bands were great. You know, yes, Refer with Caution did win
Mhm.
the audience choice, as well as there was also you had to donate to vote, so we
Right.
won in votes as well. But you know, not to discredit anybody else. The other bands were great, and the whole program itself was great. And to bring people together like that to benefit the United Way and help raise some money in a fun way.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
So I did get an email today from the United Way that apparently next year they do have to participate to defend their crown.
Nice.
So the
so-
band lives on.
The band lives on,
I
whether they
love
want
it.
to or not. They gotta
I love
keep
it.
going.
All right, we'll keep the drums down here. Okay. So Joe, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the market. Obviously, we're just coming off the month of September. So talk with us just a little bit about the stats, you know, sales, listings, etc.
Yeah, so I think if we back up to last podcast, we talked about the Fed had just announced the lowering of rates by 0.5%.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think a lot of people in the real estate industry thought, oh, this is it, right? This is going to be it. Here come the buyers. Get ready. We're going to be drinking from a fire hose. And, you know, really what we saw was a little bit of the opposite, right? Rates went actually up when the Fed dropped rates. And, you know, we've talked about this in the past, right? The mortgage 30-year fixed interest rate is tied to the 10-year treasury, which is a bond. And typically people flee to bonds for safety.
Sure.
And when people flee to bonds, the yield of the bond goes up. So when the Fed cut rates at that 0.5%, people thought, wait a minute, they didn't do a quarter, they did a half. So something must be looming that we don't know about yet, right? In the economy, maybe they think that the Fed knows something that they don't. So, you know, that big cut in rates was kind of spooked people a little bit to flee to that safety in bonds, which did drive the 10-year back up a little bit, and then in turn drove rates up as well. You know, so we didn't see that, hey, here come all the buyers to get back into the market, even though it is a perfect time to enter the market right now. You know, from a lot of the conversations we're having, from what we're seeing, there doesn't seem to be as much competition out there right now if you were a buyer. We're seeing homes that are going past delayed negotiation. We're seeing homes that aren't getting the, you know, multiple offers that they were getting just last month. So I'm hearing that from my conversations with a lot of our agent partners, as well as the numbers tell us that a little bit as well. So, you know, in Monroe, the numbers were a little interesting. So in Monroe and surrounding counties, I think this may be the first time that Monroe and surrounding was actually higher than Monroe County. It was 8.99% over list. So last month it was 8.4% over. So it was up in Monroe and surrounding. We did continue to see an increase in government volume. We had 14 government applications, so about 13% of the volume. But in Monroe County, when you look at it just by itself, we dropped from 11.96% over ask in August to 8.03% in September. So it was a pretty big drop, and also reflective of kind of what we've been hearing and seeing. You know, there was Irondequoit this month, so we've been flip-flopping back and forth between Greece and Irondequoit. One month is Greece, next month is Irondequoit. So Irondequoit this month did pass up Greece as the hottest pocket in Rochester. We had 14 transactions in those zip codes in the month of September, anywhere from 9% over to 37% over. Average was about 17% over ask. So, you know, again, we keep seeing that go back and forth, and we kind of gauge that by how many transactions we had in that area, right? So we look at all the zip codes and which one had the most transactions in it. You know, I did see this month as well, Webster actually had we had 7 transactions in Webster, which was pretty high. Usually it's like 3 or 4. So starting to see some different activity. And as we've talked about in the past, right, timing is everything. As we talked about when you sold your house, I was talking to somebody last night that's getting ready to put theirs on the market that they're nervous about, you know, the timing of it. So The best thing to do is have the conversations, talk to the right people, get in touch with your realtor partners or, your loan officers, and we can put you in touch with the right people if you're thinking about buying or selling. Now's a good time to do both.
Right. So just to stay on the topic of rates, we right now, just as an FYI, we probably have half of our loans, half of the contracts that we have and the application that we have, people have elected to float the rate. They haven't locked in their rate. And I think, Joe, you hit on the head where the expectation is when the Fed, reduced rates, people, I'm not going to lock my rate in because rates are going to drop. So, and obviously the opposite, took place. And I think it's something that we just need to continually to remind most of the folks that are listening to this right now, our realtors, as you try to gauge or work with us to try to give advice to your clients. When they do float, certainly they can, and rates could come down. But I think the other part that's important to keep in mind that the magnitude of these moves up or down right now in this environment are pretty small.
Correct.
So what you're hoping to gain is somewhat modest, and what you potentially could lose is also modest. So I think it's something that as we continue to see what transpires, the expectation that's been out there is that rates are going to come down, but it's going to be a very gradual process. And I think, this is a good time just once again to remind everybody of our Rate Relief Plus program, which again gives those borrowers the benefit of having a rate lower for 1 year. And then, as we discussed, last month, Joe, we extended our rate relief program to the end of 2027. So someone could benefit from saving closing costs when they do refinance. So I think don't get so hung up in, am I going to be so smart that I'm going to save an eighth of my rate? There's other options out there that give you that protection long term as well. Yeah.
So just shifting gears to Onondaga County. So in Onondaga and surroundings, finished the month averaging 3.85% over ask, up slightly from the 3.1 we saw the month before. Government volume made up about 13% of the business there. 3 of those transactions were right in Onondaga County, and then 1 in Cayuga. And then Onondaga County on its own, if we zoom out or zoom in, I guess, 4.4% over ask. Was a slight decrease in the average price from $255 in August to $246. Mm-hmm. So, we're seeing some movement in price, and that's been common, right? We've been seeing some fluctuation as, people want to make sure they're pricing their home right for what the market is kind of dictating in that time. And then we did have, so in Onondaga County, there was 3 zip codes that had an average below ask, and all 3 only had 1 offer accepted in there. So, you're still seeing houses come in at ask or above ask for the most part, and there's some small outliers we're starting to see as well. So we'll keep those numbers coming and keep everybody updated on that. Great.
So Megan, thank you again so much for being here today. Obviously, this is a busy month for you and for your team. So maybe you can share with us, what's going on this month, and then maybe from your perspective, give us some tips, some suggestions, some things to be aware of.
Sure. Yeah. So Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. We're actually celebrating its 21st year.
Okay.
It was started in 2004, enacted by the President and Congress.
Okay.
To raise awareness, and it's spread. It's not just a national thing anymore. It's global. So as we see, a lot of our cyber threats are coming, typically actually from overseas. Okay. So. So people got to be aware of what's going on. The thing I always like to talk about is kind of best practices, what people should be thinking about in their day-to-day, and this goes towards businesses or in your personal life. Primary thing is be aware of phishing scams. We do a lot of simulated phishing testing here at the bank. I'm sure you guys know. You hear about it all the time. Yes. We did what we call the phishing derby over the summer, right?
We do live in fear of clicking links, I think.
A
lot of us.
Yes. But I have to say, Megan, you have done an amazing job. Just speaking for myself, the level of awareness that you brought to this, but also really trying to make it as best you can, fun with some of the training and so forth that we have to go through. It's certainly, I think you've done a heck of a job with
Well,
that.
thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, phishing attempts are certainly on the rise. So we ask everyone to be aware of what they could be clicking on or even opening attachments these days. There's a lot of things out there that can compromise your email very easily or your data. The other big thing I've been trying to press upon people, we use password managers here, right, at the bank. That's such a great tool, but people don't realize the importance of that.
Right.
And using different passwords for all of your different accounts, whether it's, your bank account or even your social media accounts.
Right.
A lot of people find those being hacked. So trying to use a password manager so you have different passwords on every different account, and those password managers can create complex passwords so you don't have to come up with something yourself.
Right.
So
That reminds me, I have to change my password from password 123.
yeah.
Right.
Might be
That's not a good. Yeah, let's not use your date of birth. Joe, or anything along those.
Or anything. Your pet's name. It's amazing how many times I see that, or anniversary date. Right. It's a good way to remember it, I guess.
If you remember your anniversary.
If you remember your
That's
anniversary.
great.
So, Megan, I know we're talking about cybersecurity, but we see a lot and we get a lot of questions on, especially because we were dealing with post-purchase of a new home. What are some of the scams and some of the stuff that you typically see? Because those usually come in the mail, not so much in your email, right?
Right. So I guess the thing to be aware of with, after you purchase a home, we have to record that with the county, right? So that information is available for people to go get. And it has your name, your new address, what you purchased the house for, and who was your lender, which is us, right? GRB.
Right.
And so we have seen a lot of letters come in to people saying, oh, well, you need like a home warranty or to purchase more insurance, or they use that information to get you to disclose other things about yourself that are maybe more personal in nature.
Right.
So you really want to think about the fact that those things are publicly available,
Right.
Or the fact that, obviously buying a house is really exciting, right? It's a big purchase.
Yep.
It's exciting.
Right.
You're posting that information on social media, so thinking about the fact that what you're putting out there, others now know about you and how they could use that against you. So it's not just the fact that it's recorded with the county, but also the fact that you're probably sharing with people, right, that you've done that, and thinking about when you do post something like that, how could somebody use it?
Right.
Unfortunately, in a malicious way against you, and just being cognizant of that.
Yeah, I think a common one we see a lot too is, here you can send us a check for $150 and we'll send you a copy of your deed. Your deed is public record. You can download it right from the county clerk's website, so you don't need to pay for that. But a lot of people don't realize that, right? And we say that all the time, right? We eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, and when you're not sure, you're like, oh, hey, that would be a good thing to have.
Yeah. Well, and I always tell, I tell employees all the time, if you're unsure of something like a phishing email or something else, ask. And, I think our team here is always available. So if we have customers who aren't sure, they should just reach out to their loan officer, and we can, certainly advise them on, no, that's not something, you need to do, or, ask the expert. That's what I always say.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. So obviously, Megan, that's a lot of good, suggestions. One of the things that you actually shared with me, I think this probably maybe at least a year or two ago, you simply said, just try to slow down. And don't be so quick to click on a link. Don't be so quick to click on that attachment, and try to really just kind of, you get so involved in your day and you're just rushing through that sometimes just pause for
just a few seconds. There was a recent report out. The stats show that most people click on a link or open an attachment in less than 60 seconds.
Right.
It's probably hard to read through a whole email. I mean, depending on how long it is, in 60 seconds. So a lot of times we just tell people, if you can just slow down a second. I know we're in a fast-paced environment and trying to move as quickly as we can to get everything done. But just those few extra seconds to really think about what somebody sent you makes a world of difference.
So Joe, just to kind of wrap up today, obviously one of the things we want to do is to continually provide value to our audience.
I have a bone to pick with our audience.
You do have a bone? Okay, all right. I guess go for it.
So apparently our subscribers last month didn't like my chicken wing shirt because out of our listeners last month, only 7% of our listeners last month were actually subscribers, meaning 92% of the people that listened last month aren't even subscribed to our podcast.
Wow.
And I know everybody wants to be notified as soon as our podcasts become available
Mhm.
so that they can listen to it right away, because, who wouldn't want to do that?
Mhm.
So we're gonna put a call out to people to subscribe, like and subscribe. We've been saying that. We want to get our subscribers up so you guys can get this information as soon as it becomes available.
Maybe we just need to get some suggestions on what, from a wardrobe perspective. The
Yeah,
audience would like
hey,
you to wear.
we
What
could
do
take
they,
some
exactly.
recommendations.
Yeah, I think we could do that as well. But I do think, one of the things, we say this at the end of every podcast. We want to ensure that you give us feedback on topics and items of things that you want us to discuss, to do research on. Obviously, the market is ever, changing. We have an election coming up in 40 days or so? Or is it less than that now? So obviously, one of the things that we'll certainly, share is, obviously, Joe, you and I are both involved in the Mortgage Bankers Association. The MBA is definitely doing a lot of work around what is going to be the MBA's response to whether it's a Democratic White House or a Republican White House, and how that might shape housing policy going forward so that we can be prepared to respond to that. So more to come on that as well. And with that, listen, we want to thank everybody for
Wait, don't
joining
forget
us.
about our listener challenge.
Go. I'm sorry. Go. You share.
Yeah, so we have a listener challenge for
Yeah.
our Realtor friends or whoever wants to participate.
Yep.
We have a client by the name of Frederick Kruger
Okay.
who wants to list his house on Elm Street.
Ooh.
It's a bit of a nightmare of a house.
Okay.
It needs a little work. But we want you to send us in your best pitch.
Okay.
Send us in your best pitch for listing that house, and we will choose the best one, maybe share it, maybe even invite them on the podcast to do the pitch for the audience.
Ooh.
So,
That's
we're throwing it
spooky.
out there. You can submit your pitch on our website, grbbank.com/MJ, and we'll pick and announce a winner.
Okay.
It's a little fun Halloween
A
activity.
little scary listing out there to be
Yeah.
had by someone. Yeah.
Sounds
And he
like a
also doesn't
perfect
want to
house.
pay real estate commission.
Okay. All right.
Make it a
Might
little
be a good house
scarier.
for a witch.
There you go.
That's right. That's right. Megan, thanks for being here with us
Thank you for having
today.
me.
A lot of good information. And again, thanks for all of you for listening in. And we'll see you next month.
Right.
Cheers.
Happy Halloween.
Boo.
Mike and Joe, I have infiltrated your podcast. Be warned, you are not secure. If you want your podcast back, I will send my ransom note. See the comments in your podcast for how to get it back. Subscribe now.